Kurtop here, and these are 100 ancient artifacts that don't fit into history. Books written in gold and on gold. An amazing exhibition dedicated to books covered in gold, written on gold, or written with gold, has opened at the British Library. The Gold Project has brought together codices, scrolls, and documents from the library's collections. A total of 50 items from 20 countries and 17 languages relating to 5 major world religions. It shows how this precious metal has captured the imagination of scribes, artists, and patrons throughout history across different cultures and religions. Among the items on display, a contract from South India, printed on a gold strip over 2 meters long, dated 1691. Buddhist chants inscribed on 2 gold strips from Myanmar, Burma, dating from the 5th to 6th centuries, one of the oldest exhibits in the exhibition. A Byzantine imperial seal, a 13th century Quran cover with the earliest known example of gold embossing on leather. The Buddhist Lotus Sutra, inscribed on a scroll with gold and silver ink. The Harley Golden Gospels, entirely written in gold ink in the 9th century. A Tudor girdle book, and so on and so forth. An ancient quarry in China. China holds many mysteries. Among them are not only ancient burials of people with fair skin, but also pyramids buried under layers of earth. The size of the ancient megaliths and the traces of working on their surfaces. Conspiracy theorists believe that their origin is the work of an ancient people who possessed advanced technological knowledge, as well as extraterrestrial technologies, and who lived in the territory of ancient China. There is a possibility that it was these people who built the Chinese pyramids, and at the same time the first burials of fair-haired giants of the Europoid race appeared. According to historians, the last limestone extraction in this quarry was carried out back in the 15th century. The reasons for stopping work and ceasing mineral extraction are unknown to science. Limestone is quite easy to process, therefore, extraction was carried out using improvised tools, as evidenced by the chaotic scratches on the walls. Strange. The quarry has survived to our time and has not been affected by erosion. Some researchers believe that the quarry was developed long before the Common Era, and the stone blocks were buried under a layer of clay during the cataclysms that occurred. And conspiracy theorists suggest that this place was a navigation complex that helped people navigate, and the largest megalith served as an infrasound antenna. Whoever created these monuments, one thing can be said for sure: they were a great people, or maybe something more than just a people, thanks to whom amazing structures and high-tech equipment are still being found in China to this day. The Band of Holes in Peru. In the Pisco Valley in Peru, there is a mysterious place known as the Band of Holes, or Monte Sierpe. It is a narrow strip of land, 1,420 meters wide and about 1,500 meters long, covered with thousands of shallow pits. Their exact purpose remains a mystery, although scientists have put forward many theories. The site was first studied. It became famous thanks to an aerial photograph by Robert Shippey, published in the 1930s in National Geographic. For a long time, archaeologists avoided Monte Sierpe. It was only in the 1950s that Victor von Hagen studied the pits and suggested that they were empty graves, estimating their total number at 5,000. Later, John Heisler put forward the theory that the pits were used as storage facilities, similar to those found in other parts of Peru. Each hole is about a meter in diameter. They are made in different ways. Some are dug into embankments, while others are surrounded by stone walls. Modern research, including a detailed map created with a drone in 2015, has shown that the strip of holes consists of 5,000 to 6,000 pits, divided into blocks with unique patterns. Nearby are Inca roads and the remains of storage buildings, and pottery found there indicates they date back to the 15th century, when the Incas conquered the Chincha people. Archaeologist Charles Stanish believes that the pits may have been used to measure agricultural tribute that local farmers gave to the rulers. Other scholars, such as Jean-Pierre Procine, believe that the line of holes may be even older. He believes that the pits may have been used to store fertilizers, such as excrement. To this day, the line of holes remains one of the most mysterious archaeological discoveries in Peru. Who created it, why, and how still remains a subject of debate and ongoing research. The composition of the ritual cocktail. For the first time, scientists managed to study organic remains inside an ancient vessel that is 2,000 years old. The study showed that ancient Egyptians consumed a special ritual cocktail that included fruits, nuts, alcohol, biological fluids, and psychoactive substances. The vessel, known as the Bez mug, was studied using innovative technology developed by scientists from the University of South Florida in collaboration with colleagues from Italy. This is the first time that the complete chemical composition of a ritual drink has been identified, including its psychoactive and medicinal components. Bez mugs were dedicated to the Egyptian god of the same name, the patron of fertility, healing, and protection. He was depicted with a crown of feathers, large eyes, and a tail. Such vessels were used from the 16th century BC to the 5th century AD, and the specimen under study dates back to the Ptolemaic period. The analysis revealed traces of honey, grapes, sesame, pine nuts, licorice, and hallucinogenic components. Scientists suggest that the mixture was used in magical rituals. People were looking for confirmation of a successful pregnancy, since in ancient times it was considered a dangerous and unpredictable process. Such a cocktail probably induced visions, helping to establish a connection with the deity. The oldest hairstyle. This is an amazing discovery. A preserved hairstyle about 3,300 years old, found on the head of an ancient Egyptian. The intricate braids are striking in their complexity and excellent preservation. In ancient Egypt, hairstyles were of great importance and were often used to express status, age, and social position. Hair care included the use of oils and aromatic products, which also contributed to their longevity. Preserved details, such as braids, allow scientists to better understand how important appearance was to the ancient Egyptians and what skill was required to create such hairstyles. Forbidden texts, 2,000 years old. In China, archaeologists discovered several ancient bamboo slips with characters, the deciphering of which shed new light on the history of the ban introduced by the Qin dynasty. Archaeologists discovered 6 well-preserved bamboo slips covered with characters. The deciphering of these texts sheds new light on the history and evolution of Chinese reading habits. The artifacts were found during excavations in Hunan province, located in central China. The work was carried out in the city of Yiyang. The relics themselves were found at the historical site of Tuzishan. They are ancient slips and papers. Experts estimate that the artifacts are about 2,000 years old. They date back to the early period of the Western Han Dynasty. The excavation was carried out back in 2013, but only now has Zhang Chunlong, the head of the excavation team, made public the results of the research on the findings from that time. According to him, there are unusual records on 6 bamboo slips. Essentially, it's correspondence between people discussing the offering of books. Archaeologists believe that the texts discuss the issue of lifting the ban on private book collections. Such a ban was first introduced during the Qin dynasty. As these bamboo slips show, after the ban was lifted, borrowing, gifting, and collecting books became a social trend. Later, both the royal family and local authorities amassed unprecedentedly rich collections of books. During the Western Han Dynasty, people started reading more books, and libraries began to appear. Changes in human DNA. Some scientists discuss the possibility that alien microbes could affect human DNA, leading to significant changes in our genetic code. This hypothesis suggests that such microorganisms could not only exist, but also influence human evolution, making us more like them. In support of this idea, researchers point to a number of observable changes in the human population, such as a decrease in testosterone levels and a reduction in sperm count in men. These trends can be interpreted as signs of evolutionary changes, possibly caused by external influences, including environmental factors or even the impact of extraterrestrial agents. The decrease in testosterone levels and sperm count can have serious consequences for reproductive health and demographic structure of the population, which makes this topic important from both a scientific and social perspective. People in ancient times recycled old things. Trash is generated daily, but a huge part of it still ends up in landfills. It seems that people have only recently learned to recycle at least some household waste. But that's not true. The previous generation treated things with care and tried not to throw anything away. And it's not just our grandparents. Scientists have found that even ancient people gave things a second life. In the year 2000, scientists discovered the Kasem Cave, which became a real sensation in scientific circles. The cave managed to preserve many traces of life here, from 200,000 to 400,000 years ago. Traces of a fire, simple utensils, and bones. At first, Italian and Israeli archaeologists worked with the largest finds, but then they turned their attention to small pieces of stone, which were clearly tools. The tools, such as chisels and scrapers, were so small that archaeologists began to doubt whether they were actually used. In order to find out the truth, the tools were examined several times using various methods. For example, spectroscopy was conducted, and as a result, traces of hides, meat, and plants were found on the former cutting surfaces. This made it possible to conclude that the tools were indeed used. But why were they so miniature? It is quite possible, as scientists say, that these tools were made from other larger instruments. And when those became unusable, new ones were made from them. At first, scientists thought these were just fragments, but the analyses carried out proved that these are independent tools. Scientists concluded that hominids realized they didn't have to throw things away, but could make something new out of them and use them for smaller tasks. This allowed them, for example, to work leather properly. Miniature tools developed fine motor skills, and humans evolved. Precious stones in teeth. The ancient Maya were once very proud of their teeth. Long before Europeans started filling their mouths with gold and putting in grills, the Maya flashed teeth decorated with jade, turquoise, gold, pyrite, and precious stones. The Maya believed that breath connected them to the gods. To purify it, many people filed, carved, and polished their teeth. Some even decorated them with precious stones. And new research shows that the glue used to hold the jewels on the teeth may have prevented infections. Up to 900 AD, many Maya people in what is now Guatemala, Belize, and Mexico attached colored stones to the front of their teeth. Maya dentists drilled holes in the enamel and dentin, then fitted the stones and applied glue. This usually happened as part of an initiation rite, marking the transition to adulthood. The dental glue turned out to be surprisingly strong. More than half of the modified teeth from archaeological excavations still retain their decorations intact. Subsequent studies of the glue revealed inorganic materials in it, similar to cement and hydroxyapatite, a mineral derived from crushed teeth and bones used to strengthen the mixture. Now, researchers have discovered 150 organic molecules commonly found in plant resins, as they reported last month in the Journal of Archaeological Science Reports. Most of the samples included ingredients that can fight bacteria, causing tooth decay. Oral hygiene was important to the Maya. Archaeologists point to Ajanab Pakal, the Maya king of Palenque, who died in 683 AD at the age of 80, with almost all his teeth and no signs of tooth decay. The iconic collection Missa in Agenda Defunctorum from 1733 is a rare artifact from the early 18th century created for conducting requiem masses. This unique collection, used by priests for reading prayers at the altar, stands out not only for its content, but also for the symbolism of its design. The book's binding is decorated with an image of a skull and crossbones, emphasizing its purpose in rituals related to death and remembrance. The collection includes hymns and texts of the Latin liturgy that were used for the repose of the souls of the deceased. The skull symbolism on the cover reflects the contemporary view of the transience of existence and serves as a reminder of the inevitability of death, motifs characteristic of the Baroque era. Such books were works of art, symbolizing the mystique and grandeur of Catholic rituals. It is known that bindings with such symbolism were often made specifically for churches or noble families who wanted to emphasize their connection to religious tradition. This collection was probably used in a monastery or chapel, serving as a reminder of the need to pray for the repose of souls. Books bound in human skin. In the 18th and 19th centuries, there was a grim practice of binding books in human skin. This rare and shocking phenomenon was called anthropodermic bibliophagy. Some copies of medical or philosophical treatises, as well as personal diaries, could be bound in the skin of deceased people, most often in their memory. For example, some doctors used the skin of their patients to bind medical texts in order to immortalize their contribution to science. Books like this have become the subject of increased interest and research. Modern technologies, including DNA analysis and chemical tests, make it possible to determine whether the binding is really made from human skin. This phenomenon reflects not only the medical and scientific interests of the era, but also attitudes toward death, memory, and the body. Today, anthropodermic books are rare artifacts that evoke both horror and fascination, as well as serve as a reminder of the strange and contradictory traditions of the past. Famous peoples with an unknown future. In the pages of history books and textbooks, you can find peoples such as the Cumans, the Aztecs, or the Phoenicians. And this is not surprising because all of them, to some extent, left their mark. However, today few people are interested in what happened to them. Did they disappear, or do their descendants still inhabit the planet? And I'll start with the Aztecs, whose temples have survived to this day. Many people remember the Aztecs for their rituals and ceremonies, but for some reason, few pay attention to their cultural development. After all, poetry and theatrical performances, which involve musicians and acrobats, were highly valued among them. In addition, they made sculptures and pottery, as well as wood carving. So what happened to them? In the 16th century, the Spanish arrived in their territory and founded Mexico City. It's not hard to guess that today the descendants of the Aztecs are Mexicans who are trying to preserve the culture of a people who fell at the hands of the Spanish conquerors. But while these people lived much later, the Mayan civilization emerged before the Common Era. This people are remembered for their achievements in mathematics and astronomy, and their precise calendar has caused quite a stir more than once. Perhaps many more discoveries awaited them in the future, if it weren't for the Spanish again, who brought with them many diseases unknown to the Indians. Today, in the territory of Mexico and Central America, you can find about 5 million people who speak Mayan languages. They all united into communities and went to live in villages, where they are engaged in agriculture and selling their products. The Phoenicians were remarkable, as their language became the foundation for many modern alphabetic systems. Among them were outstanding merchants and sailors, as well as masters of glass and ceramics. However, the wealth they accumulated did not provide their state with protection. So, as early as the 4th century BC, the Phoenicians disappeared, and today other countries, such as Lebanon and Syria, are located on their former territory. Do you remember how the Gauls were portrayed in the series of films about Asterix and Obelix? Well, this Celtic tribe was indeed considered barbarians, although in reality, you can't really call them savages. In their rather complex society, Druids were revered and they advocated for gender equality. Also, the Celts were among the first Europeans to start wearing pants. By the 1st century BC, most of the Celtic peoples had faded into history. Only the British part remained, living in the territories of Wales, Scotland, and Ireland. Even though this people no longer exist as a distinct group, their culture continues to live on and is actively celebrated by people from all over the world at various annual festivals. Most people have heard of the Incas, who lived in the 12th century in a territory stretching from Chile to Ecuador. However, few people know that in this empire, poverty and unemployment were not allowed, and they fought against them with the motto, "Don't lie, don't steal, and don't be lazy." So what were these people known for? They created a lunar calendar, as well as a method of transmitting secret information using quipu, a complex weaving of knots and cords. And once again, a promising civilization fell because of the Spaniards, who brought a smallpox epidemic to their land. It is known that the Pelovtsians were nomads who did not try to create their own state, but simply moved around the territory of Central Asia. However, few have probably heard the theory that these people looked like blue-eyed blondes with mongoloid facial features. In the 13th century, the Pelovtsians ceased to exist, merging with other peoples and adopting their way of life. And I'll finish with the Bulgars, who are known today as Bulgarians. Unlike the Pelovtsians, they founded their own state as early as the 7th century. After adopting religion, this people became so close to Slavic culture that even 5 centuries of Ottoman oppression did not make them side with the Turks. However, the independent country of Bulgaria, as we know it today, only appeared at the beginning of the 20th century. Cold Dragon. While studying the fossilized remains of a creature discovered in the Canadian province of Alberta, London paleontologists found a previously unknown animal, which was named Cryodracon boreas, with a wingspan of up to 10 meters and a weight of 250 kilograms. This species turned out to be one of the largest flying animals in history. It belongs to the family Ashdarchidae, a type of pterosaur that is often confused with pterodactyls, and lived during the Cretaceous period, about 77 million years ago. The coal dragon had a wingspan of up to 10 meters and weighed about 250 kilograms, making it one of the largest flying reptiles in history. The dinosaur's remains, parts of the wings, legs, ribs, vertebrae, and neck, were discovered 30 years ago in Canada, but paleontologists had assumed all this time that they belonged to an already known species of pterosaur. Quetzalcoatlus nortropi, discovered in Texas. Most of the skeleton belongs to a young reptile with a wingspan of about 5 meters, but one large neck bone, which belonged to an older individual, suggests that the adult animal had a wingspan of up to 10 meters. These pterosaurs were carnivorous and hunted small animals, lizards, mammals, and dinosaur hatchlings. Unlike most groups of pterosaurs, Ashdarchids are generally considered to be animals that were adapted to inland habitats, despite their ability to cross oceans. The remains of Cryodracon boreas include parts of the wings, legs, ribs, and neck vertebrae from 2 different individuals. Despite the large body size and wide distribution of these reptiles in North and South America, Asia, Africa, and Europe, scientists have only managed to find fragmentary remains of a few Ashdarchid species. However, the remains of the new pterosaur species are well preserved and therefore are valuable to paleontologists. The origin of all things. A clay sculpture of a seated mother goddess from Balochistan, Pakistan, dates back to the Bronze Age and is estimated to be from around 2500–2000 BCE. This artifact, measuring only 8.6 cm by 2.9 cm, is kept in the collection of the Metropolitan Museum in New York. The sculpture depicts a mother goddess, a symbol of fertility and motherhood. A distinctive feature is the detailed depiction of the hairstyle in the form of wavy locks, which may symbolize life force and protection. The large breasts and hips emphasize the cult of the feminine principle, which was common in ancient cultures associated with agriculture. Of particular interest is the similarity of this sculpture to similar artifacts found in other regions, such as Mesopotamia and the Indus Valley. There is a suggestion that the sculpture had a ritual purpose. It was probably used in ceremonies related to the fertility of the earth and women. A more mystical interpretation hints at a connection with ancient cosmic cults, where the figure could have symbolized the link between celestial and earthly forces, serving as a mediator between worlds. Frozen beauty, mourning mother. The mask of a young woman created by an unknown master of the Liao dynasty in 907–1125 demonstrates the highest level of metalworking skill of that time. Made of gilded bronze, this mask embodies an image of serenity and refined elegance. The Liao, who ruled in the northern part of China, were known for their innovations in craftsmanship, including adapting Chinese techniques into their own unique styles. This mask likely served as an important talisman, protecting the soul of the deceased woman on her journey to the afterlife. You can see delicate features in it, reflecting a portrait-like resemblance to the deceased, which makes it stand out among other cultural artifacts of that time. A special fastening under the chin, designed to be secured with silk clothing, suggests that the mask not only had aesthetic value, but also served practical purposes in burial rituals. Mystics suggest that such masks could carry information or energy that connects descendants with their ancestors. Some researchers claim that the distinctive style of rounded features may have been inspired by certain extraterrestrial visitors, especially considering the symbolism and sacred customs of Liao. The first XXL-sized mammal. Being an innovator means taking a big risk for a big reward. The first amphibian to venture onto land gave its descendants carte blanche to colonize the land and conquer the air, while the first dinosaur set evolutionary trends for hundreds of millions of years to come. But hundreds, if not thousands of species went extinct, unable to cope with the competition. Among them were the titanoids, the first XXL-sized mammals. Today, North Dakota is covered with grasslands, deciduous and coniferous forests, but 60 million years ago it was a swampy subtropical paradise. Soft, lush vegetation grew everywhere, and the titanoid genus decided to take advantage of this natural abundance. The giants closely resembled modern bears, a stocky body on short legs, a powerful short neck, a small tail, and a weight ranging from 90 to 130 kilograms. But they were not related to modern bears. Titanoids were much slower, couldn't stand on their hind legs, and had a different snout shape. The skeleton of the titanoid is on the left, and the brown bear's is on the right. Notice the difference in the size of the skull. Our hero clearly wasn't very bright. And the animal also developed long, strong fangs, which is rather strange since they only ate fruit and soft vegetation. In extreme cases, they didn't mind eating carrion, but they definitely didn't hunt on their own. This slow creature simply couldn't catch anyone, and the teeth weren't very good for defense either. Other mammals didn't pose a physical threat, and strong claws or fangs couldn't save them from crocodiles. Titanoids were the first among mammals to grow to a large size, but the species that followed them turned out to be faster, more agile, and better adapted to changes in the environment. A similar fate awaited the entire family of pantodonts, to which our heroes belonged. Some of them reached the size of rhinoceroses, but by 30 million years ago, the family had vanished without a trace. The invasion of witches and ghouls. In the Philippines in the 1950s, rumors spread about an invasion of aswangs, evil creatures from Filipino folklore, similar to ghouls and witches. These mythical creatures allegedly attacked people, which caused a wave of fear among the population. However, behind these rumors was not folklore, but a carefully planned CIA operation. To suppress the Filipino insurgents, American agents decided to take advantage of the local people's superstitions. The CIA kidnapped local residents or killed them in horrifying ways, leaving the bodies in plain sight to cause panic. Then they spread rumors that these were attacks by aswangs. This tactic played on people's fears and beliefs, which led to a weakening of support for the rebels among the local population. It was psychological warfare, the goal of which was to break people's morale without resorting to open battles. This case shows how myths and folklore can be used for political and military purposes, turning into powerful tools of manipulation. 17 skeletons on the grounds of the Welsh monastery. British archaeologists from Pembrokeshire County, located in the west of Wales, discovered the remains of 17 skeletons in a burial site, which, in their opinion, belonged to the monastery of the Holy Savior before the reformer King Henry VIII seized their property. The male monastery existed from the mid-1200s until its dissolution in 1536-1541. In the final years of the monastery's existence, Henry VIII, King of England and Wales, ordered the confiscation and sale of many church properties. This happened after he broke off relations with the Catholic Church. The medieval monastery of the Holy Savior, inhabited by Dominican monks distinguished by the black color of their robes, was no exception in this regard. According to Murphy, the crown sold all their property, but part of it, in particular the burial ground that belonged to the monastery, remained untouched until the 17th century. We don't know for sure whether these remains belonged to monks because all kinds of people were often buried in monastic cemeteries. The dead were buried only in shrouds, and the hands of all the skeletons were crossed on their chests. In the Middle Ages, roughly from 500 to 1500 AD, monasteries were a popular place for burials. Originally, monastery cemeteries were intended only for the monks themselves, but they quickly became a popular place for lay people to be buried. The current excavations are being carried out before major construction begins on this site. In this area, they plan to build a 3-story store with a bar and a rooftop terrace. Excavations in the sunken ancient city. Large buildings and artifacts have been found in the ancient sunken city of the Mitanni Empire in Iraq. A group of German and Kurdish archaeologists conducted excavations of a 3,400-year-old ancient city from the era of the Mitanni Empire, which was located in the Tigris River basin. The ruins of the settlement appeared in the Mosul Reservoir at the beginning of 2022 when the water level dropped due to severe drought in Iraq. In the short time before the ruins and artifacts disappeared underwater again, the researchers managed to map the city. In addition to the palace, which had already been documented in 2018, archaeologists found several other large buildings, a massive fortification with a wall and towers, a multi-story warehouse building, and an industrial complex. The remains of the city date back to the time of the Mitanni Empire, which controlled most of northern Mesopotamia and Syria. It is noted that the city walls are well preserved despite being made of mud brick and having been underwater. In addition, the upper part of the walls collapsed during an earthquake around 1350 BC and buried the remaining part of the structure, creating conditions that ensured its preservation. Of particular interest to scientists are 5 ceramic vessels containing an archive of more than 100 cuneiform tablets. They date back to the Middle Assyrian period shortly after the earthquake occurred in the city. Some of the tablets, which may be ancient letters, are still inside clay envelopes. Researchers hope that this discovery will provide important information about the final years of the city's existence and the beginning of Assyrian rule in the region. The first biological weapon of QZ. Scientists have confirmed the shocking story about a biological weapon used 800 years ago in Norway. During the excavations in the ruins of Sverdsborg Castle, archaeologists found the remains of a person who was thrown into a well to poison the water in the midst of the medieval civil war in Norway. This story is described in the Scandinavian Chronicles Saga of Sverre, but many historians doubted its authenticity. According to the saga, during the siege of Sverdsborg, a group supporting the archbishop, and known as the Baglers, not finding King Sverre Sigurdsson, decided to use a corpse as a means to poison the water. To confirm this, a team of scientists conducted DNA analysis of the remains found at the bottom of the well. Back in 1938, archaeologists discovered the intact remains of a man at a depth of several meters in the well. But further research was interrupted due to World War II. It was only in 2016 that scientists were able to resume excavations, which showed that the person from the well was a man aged 30 to 40 years with a skull injury, which may have been the cause of his death. There were no clothes around him except for a preserved leather shoe. DNA analysis and radiocarbon dating confirmed that the remains do indeed belong to the period of the conflict. Remains of people with enormous heads. Scientists from the University of Honolulu and the Chinese Academy of Sciences made a unique discovery by finding the remains of a previously unknown species of ancient humans, Homo juluensis. This species is believed to have gone extinct about 200,000 years ago. At the Zujiayo site, archaeologists found 16 skeletons, stone tools, and animal remains. A distinctive feature of the new species was their massive skulls, with a volume of 1,600 to 1,700 cubic centimeters. This is significantly more than that of Homo sapiens, which is 1,300 cubic centimeters, or Neanderthals, which is 1,400. However, scientists emphasize that a large skull does not always indicate higher intellectual abilities. Instead, it could have been an adaptation to the conditions of the Ice Age, when the climate became cooler and harsher. Homo juluensis hunted wild horses, ate their meat, and used their hides to make clothing. They lived in small groups, which made them vulnerable to changes and other external threats. Interestingly, the dental structure of Homo juluensis is similar to that of the Denisovans, another hominid line that existed in the late Quaternary period, about 300,000 years ago. However, like many other ancient species, Homo juluensis likely disappeared due to the emergence of Homo sapiens, who genetically displaced the local populations in Europe and Asia. A cemetery from the time of the plague epidemic. On Pushkinskaya Street in Rostov, archaeologists have excavated the largest necropolis. During the plague pandemic from 1770 to 1772, residents of Rostov were buried there. Historians are sure this is an archaeological sensation. Archaeologists have already excavated 25 graves and discovered about 100 skeletons. Mostly the deceased were buried as whole families, which indicates the plague epidemic that raged in this region. The first human bones at this site were found by workers at the end of April. After learning about these discoveries, a group of archaeologists began excavating and achieved astonishing results. The old cemetery that was found is marked on preserved maps. Most likely these are so-called restless dead meaning those who died an unnatural death. They were buried far from the fortress. At that time, there were about 10 cemeteries in the territory of Rostov. Despite the danger of contracting the plague, the deceased were sent on their final journey with care. The bodies were laid out carefully and evenly. In many graves, children were placed at the feet of women. Ancient silver coins were also found in the tombs. In this way, the dead hoped to find a new and happy life in the afterlife. The terrible plague that killed people in the 18th century no longer poses a danger to humans today, since 250 years have already passed. In any case, I wouldn't recommend that historians excavate mass graves of people who had the plague. Stone sarcophagus. In Italy, archaeologists discovered an untouched 2,500-year-old sarcophagus that had remained hidden underground near the volcanic Lake Bolsena. During excavations of the ancient Etruscan settlement of Byzantium on the shore of the lake, several graves were found, dating from between 700 and 500 BC. To the scientists' surprise, none of the burials had been disturbed by looters, which is rare for such an ancient site. A simple stone sarcophagus drew particular interest because its contents had remained in pristine condition. With the help of an excavator, the archaeologists lifted the heavy lid and found an almost completely preserved skeleton inside. Next to the remains was a small crafted vessel, which, according to specialists, could symbolize personal belongings or an offering to the deceased. The find is unique and gives researchers a rare opportunity to study the remains of an ancient Etruscan. Scientists hope that further analysis of the skeleton will provide valuable information about the life and culture of these people.
Таинственная гробница Чингисхана.
Death overtook the great Mongolian commander in 1227 during another campaign, and for many years, scientists and researchers have been wondering where the founder of the Mongolian Empire was buried. There are legends that the body of Chinggis Khan was returned to his homeland and buried along with a huge amount of valuables. That's why it has been a tempting target for researchers, scientists, and ordinary treasure hunters for centuries. It is believed that after his death, many people were killed for the sake of their beloved Khan. All passers-by who happened to be on the way to the burial site were executed by the warriors. After the huge grave was dug by slaves, they too were killed. Then the warriors who had killed the slaves were also put to death. Although there is a version that the warriors voluntarily took their own lives so that they could serve Chinggis Khan after death. After that, accounts of the commander's burial diverge. The first version says that the course of a river was changed, and to this day it hides the grave. The second version suggests that after the burial, a herd of horses was released, which trampled all traces of the dug-up earth. Nowadays, Mongols still value and honor Chinggis Khan. In the country, they don't look for his burial site because they believe violating the Mongol Empire founder's wish for a secret burial is a grave sin. Therefore, researchers from other countries can only theorize and speculate, exploring the area on their own or with the help of drones. However, both the government and locals refuse to allow archaeological excavations. Secret cities of the Amazon. A whole network of lost ancient cities was discovered in the Amazon. They were found using LIDAR technology, which has been called lasers in the sky. This technology was adapted to observe what is happening beneath the canopy of the rainforest. The cities, built by the Kasarabe communities between 500 and 1400 AD, are located in the Llanos de Mojos forest in Bolivia and were hidden for centuries under the dense tree canopies. Many complex and intricate structures were found in the cities, unlike anything previously discovered in the region, including terraces 7 meters high covering an area equivalent to 30 football fields and iconic pyramids 30 meters tall. An international team of researchers from the United Kingdom and Germany also discovered an extensive network of reservoirs, dams, and checkpoints stretching for several kilometers. The discovery challenges the idea of the Amazon as a historically untouched landscape. The researchers say this shows that it was home to early urbanism, created and managed by indigenous people for thousands of years. There are monumental structures just a couple of kilometers apart, connected by thousands of kilometers of canals and dikes, bringing together reservoirs and lakes. Until the end of the 20th century, there was skepticism about whether the Amazon region could support anyone other than hunter-gatherer tribes. The Mojos Plains on the southwestern edge of the Amazon are flooded for several months each year during the rainy season, making them unsuitable for permanent habitation. However, in recent decades, evidence has emerged of irrigation systems, earthworks, large cities, dams, and canals in this area. These often run for many kilometers in a straight line across the savannas. After obtaining the images, the vegetation is removed from the pictures using a computer. And in this way, a digital model of the Earth's surface is created, which can also be displayed as a 3D image. During this process, two surprisingly large areas were discovered, measuring 1.5 and 3 square kilometers with a dense 4-level settlement system. It is still impossible to estimate how many people lived in these cities. However, the layout of the settlement indicates that
Оно было довольно густонаселенным. Архитектурная планировка крупных поселений культуры Касарабы свидетельствует.
The inhabitants of this region were creating a new social and public landscape. The scale, monumentality, and labor involved in the construction of civil and ceremonial buildings, infrastructure, and water management, as well as the spatial distribution of settlements, all of this is different from the Andean cultures. The complex and interconnected settlements of the southern Amazon far surpass them in scale. 2,000-year-old fig. Irish archaeologists made an unexpected discovery, finding the charred remains of a 2,000-year-old fig at Drumana Point north of Dublin. This find became important evidence that the Roman Empire, which previously considered Ireland unreachable, still had an influence on its culture. Drumana Point was a key point of connection between Ireland and England, which was under Roman rule. Among the finds made by researchers from University College Dublin, the fig turned out to be the most surprising. The fig confirmed that it was brought to the island at a time when such exotic fruits were considered a rarity. Previously, figs had only been found in medieval layers in Ireland, but this specimen is the oldest known. In addition to the fig, traces of emmer wheat were found, a grain widely used in Roman Britain, but rare in Ireland. These findings show that the Romans not only traded goods, but also brought their way of life. Archaeologist Christian Baker explained that people in Ireland at that time enjoyed emmer wheat bread, butter, wine, and also used glass and ceramic dishes, brooches, and beads. Figs, first cultivated in eastern Turkey and northern India, made their way to the Mediterranean through ancient trade routes, where they became an important part of the Roman diet. Researchers believe that figs and emmer wheat could have been brought through Roman Chester, a major trading hub in Britain.
Самая массовая находка мумий.
On the outskirts of the ancient city of Memphis lies the Saqqara Necropolis, a vast funerary complex that measures about 7 by 1.5 kilometers. This is the largest concentration of tombs and funerary monuments in Egypt, created at different times from the early dynastic period to the era of Ptolemaic rule and Roman domination. The name of this necropolis comes from the name of the revered god of death worshipped here, Sokar. Scientists from the Egyptian Archaeological Mission, who are working at the necropolis of sacred animals in Saqqara, have discovered a large cache of antiquities at this site. Inside it, archaeologists found 150 bronze statues of various sizes, depicting ancient Egyptian deities, including Anubis, Minamun, Osiris, Isis, Nefertum, Bastet, and Hathor. In addition, the finds included a collection of bronze artifacts that were used during rituals dedicated to the goddess Isis, as well as a headless bronze statue of the architect Imhotep. Archaeologists also managed to discover shaft tombs containing 250 painted wooden sarcophagi with well-preserved mummies dating back to the late period. In addition, the scientists obtained a collection of amulets and wooden statues. Inside one of the sarcophagi, researchers discovered a well-preserved papyrus, which may contain chapters from the Book of the Dead. This find has now been sent for restoration and study of the texts it contains. Archaeologists also found 2 well-preserved wooden statues with gilded faces, depicting the goddesses Isis and Nephthys in the pose of mourners. The excavations led to the discovery of a burial from the New Kingdom period, which contained many household items and ornaments, including bracelets, earrings, and necklaces. Lard from the World War II era. For decades after severe storms, the sea has periodically washed up pig lard on the shore of St. Cyrus in Scotland, which ended up in the sea due to a shipwreck during the World War II. Recently, the waves washed up 4 more pieces of lard, each of which retained the shape of the barrels in which they were probably stored all these years. These unusual relics became known to the local residents after the cargo ship carrying the lard was sunk by bombs. It is believed that with each new storm, the sunken ship gradually releases part of its cargo, washing fatty blocks ashore. The local residents are familiar with this phenomenon and claim that the lard, despite being covered with a crust of shells, has been well preserved and is suitable for use. During the war, when access to lard was limited, such finds became real treasures that helped people get through difficult times. The ancient insulting stone was discovered by a volunteer participating in the archaeological excavations. The stone was discovered near the English town of Hexham during the deciphering of ancient Roman inscriptions on Hadrian's defensive wall. On the stone in the 3rd century, an inscription was carved, Secundinus Cacatur, which translates into English as Secundinus Shitter, and into Russian as Sekundin Zasranets. Next to it, a penis was drawn. Experts in Latin epigraphy noted that usually the Romans used the image of a phallus as a symbol of luck or fertility. In their opinion, in this case, the penis increased the strength of the insult. The stone, 40 centimeters wide and 15 centimeters high, was found by former biochemist Dylan Herbert. He discovered it at the end of his 2nd week volunteering at the excavation. The author of the stone clearly had major issues with Secundinus, since he was confident enough to publicly state his thoughts on the stone. I'm sure Secundinus was as surprised as we are when he saw the inscription here 1,700 years ago. According to experts, each carved letter and the penis, which must have taken some time, leave no doubt about the depth of the person's feelings. In total, at Hadrian's Wall, the defensive fortification that the Romans built between 122 and 128 13 stones with carved phalluses have been found. The secret of Buddhist monks. Buddhism is one of the oldest religions. There are many artifacts that allow us to reconstruct the history of this religion, its values, and its characteristics. One such artifact is considered to be the collection of texts called the Tripitaka Koreana. It contains all the knowledge about Buddhism that has been accumulated over decades. These are original texts that offer a comprehensive view of Buddhism, not copies of existing works. On the Korean peninsula, there is the Heinsa Monastery, which is very important to Asian culture as a whole. This place is remarkable not only for its beauty and the tranquility that people find here, but also because it houses truly unique texts. This collection was built up over several centuries. All the canons of Buddhism are described here. There is simply no other collection as complete as this one. All the texts are kept on clay tablets. There are more than 80,000 of them. Because of this, the collection is sometimes called the 80,000 Tripitaka. These texts are split into over 6,000 volumes. The height of each such tablet is 25 centimeters and the width is about 70 centimeters. You could say that all the wisdom of ancient people is preserved in these texts. And it took a great amount of time to study this heritage. Now, the tablets are carefully guarded, but tourists have the opportunity to see these texts in person. The temple where the texts are kept is open to travelers. Unfortunately, the collection of texts was almost completely destroyed during the Mongol invasion. All the tablets were badly damaged, but they were such an important part of the culture that the ruling dynasty ordered all the records to be restored. Such painstaking and careful work took more than 10 years. In the end, all the texts were restored. They tried to make the tablets as similar as possible to those that were lost. For example, the first tablets were made from white birch and cherry trees, and the same types of wood were used during the restoration. Moreover, to preserve the texts, the tablets were framed, and it worked. Almost 1,000 years after these tablets were made, they are in excellent condition, and the text on them can be easily read. The tablets were coated with poisonous varnish to keep insects from damaging them. A mold for making golden images. In the central part of Falster Island, located in the southeast of Denmark, an enthusiast with a metal detector made an incredible discovery that could rewrite not only the history of the region, but also shed light on a little-known page of Danish history. Leonard Larsen, while walking in the rain searching for artifacts, heard a faint signal from his device. After digging up the ground, he discovered a small, unusual object, an ancient matrix for making golden images, which was presumably used in cult rituals for offerings to the gods. According to archaeologists from the Lawlin-Falster Museum, this find may be connected to an ancient center of power or religious activity. The matrix, measuring only 2 centimeters, dates back to the period between 500 and 700 before the beginning of the Viking Age. Such artifacts are incredibly rare. Only 28 similar matrices have been found in Scandinavia, and none south of the Baltic Sea. The matrix from Falster depicts a person in elaborate clothing, standing with arms down and palms facing outward. This gesture is found in both pre-Christian and Christian cultures and symbolizes either submission or revelation. The specifics of the depiction remain a mystery. It is still unknown whether the matrix depicts a man or a woman. It could be a figure of a king expressing devotion to a deity, or conversely, a god appearing to a human. Artificial eye before you is the oldest known artificial eye in the world, which was found with the remains of a woman in the burned city of Shar-e-Sukhteh in Iran. This unique artifact is over 4,800 years old. The eye prosthesis was a hemisphere made from a lightweight material based on bitumen paste. It was covered with gold, and there were slits on its surface imitating the pupil, which gave it a realistic appearance. The prosthesis was secured with 2 small holes through which a cord was threaded, similar to modern bandages, allowing it to stay in place. The woman wore this eye during the day to hide the empty eye socket, and at night she carefully kept it in a leather pouch that was found along with other burial items. Such a level of craftsmanship and attention to appearance amazes even modern researchers. This discovery testifies to the high level of medical and craft knowledge of ancient civilizations, as well as the desire of people of that time to preserve their appearance and maintain their dignity.
Захоронение мифических астатланов.
Archaeologists from the National Institute of Anthropology and History of Mexico discovered burials of the mythical Aztlan culture that were previously unknown to science, which, according to scientists, existed more than 1,000 years ago in the territory of Mesoamerica. The burials were accidentally discovered by workers during construction work in the Mexican port of Sinaloa in Mazatlan. The work was temporarily suspended, after which archaeologists conducted rescue excavations. As a result, they uncovered pre-Spanish period burials. These turned out to be rather simple tombs that were arranged on a natural mound. The idea proved itself, as the ancient mound reliably protected the burials from erosion and destruction for thousands of years. The surface of the mound was covered with fragments of shells that had been pressed into the ground. This was probably part of the burial ritual. Here, researchers also found remains of wooden structures that were possibly built for ritual purposes as well. The bodies of the deceased were found beneath the floors of these structures. Experts concluded that the burials might belong to the mysterious Aztlan culture. It is almost unstudied, as so far too little evidence of its existence has been found. However, according to the legends of other peoples, it is known that Aztlan was a vast cultural and trade network covering a significant territory. One version suggests this civilization may be linked to the mythical Aztlan, the Aztecs' ancestral homeland. Moreover, in the Nahuatl language, the word Aztec itself means people from Aztlan. Aztlan is mentioned in several ethnographic sources from the colonial period. However, scholars have not yet found a direct connection between it and the Aztlan culture. According to archaeologist Alfonso Grave Tirado, the burial that was found dates back to around the year 900 AD. During that period, the region saw a peak in the social, economic, and political development of local states. Giants in Sardinia. On Sardinia, a mysterious island in the Mediterranean Sea, archaeologists discovered unique artifacts known as the Giants of Monte Prama. These statues are striking for their size and craftsmanship. Their name emphasizes their exceptional magnitude. According to some studies, these figures may have been created based on legends about ancient giants who inhabited the island thousands of years ago. These statues are evidence of the high level of culture that existed in Sardinia in ancient times, and may reflect the myths and religious beliefs of that era. The Giants of Monte Prama are stone figures that depict people at full height, often armed and dressed in armor traditional for that era. Some theories suggest that the figures may have been created in honor of particularly significant individuals or heroes of that time, possibly even real giants who once existed. This idea is fueled by local legends and traditions that have been passed down from generation to generation by the people of Sardinia. Thus, the giant statues from Monte Prama leave many questions about their origin, purpose, and about those they were meant to depict. The most common opinion about their origin is, of course, extraterrestrial. As some scientists claim, the statues are full-fledged copies of visitors from space. Ancient people wanted to immortalize their image on Earth as a sign of some kind of gratitude. Allegedly, thousands of years ago, some technologies and knowledge were received from these beings. Of course, we can't confirm or deny this, so let's move on. A 700-year-old vessel. Many years ago, sailing ships were the main means of transportation that people used to travel around the world. And most importantly, they traded goods from one end to the other. Most of the ships that sailed the world's waters ended up at the bottom of the ocean as a result of attacks by enemy forces or natural disasters. Only a few well-preserved ships are kept in naval museums. Most of them rest at the bottom of the ocean. An interesting archaeological discovery took place during construction work in Tallinn, Estonia. When workers were digging the ground to build the foundation of a new building, they discovered a 25-meter-long vessel, which is believed to be a Hanseatic ship from the 13th century. The vessel was found at a depth of 1.5 meters underground near the Tallinn port, close to the former mouth of the Hygiene River, a waterway that no longer exists. It was found that the hull of the vessel was almost undamaged and very well preserved in the ground compared to other similar ships discovered in the past. Archaeologist Michael Tammet conducted a dendrochronological analysis of the wood, and the results showed that the sunken vessel dates back to the year 1298. According to historical data, despite the unusual location where the sunken vessel was found, in the 18th century, this place was still underwater, and it was only at the beginning of the 20th century that it was transformed for infrastructure development. The site itself is quite close to the Tallinn port. In 2008, another similar sunken vessel was discovered just 50 meters from this location. The ship was attributed to the Hanseatic League, a powerful trading network that stretched from England to Russia. In the 13th century, this trading network was probably one of the largest economic powers in the world, dealing in goods and luxury items. The ships that were part of this network were built to last for hundreds of years and withstand countless storms. The cursed emeralds. These so-called cursed emeralds became one of the most tragic discoveries in the history of treasure hunting. They were discovered by J. Miskovich, a man who dedicated his life to searching for ancient treasures. In 2010, off the coast of Florida, he managed to find a cache of emeralds valued at several $1 million. At first glance, it seemed like luck that could change his life for the better. However, the discovery soon attracted the attention not only of the media, but also of federal agencies, including the FBI. Legal proceedings and investigations began, aiming to determine the origin of the precious stones. Complicated legal battles and public pressure turned Miskovich's life into a nightmare. Constant accusations and pressure from the authorities made his existence unbearable, and in the end, he committed suicide. This tragedy became the basis for the legend of the cursed emeralds, which brought their owner not wealth and success, but pain and suffering. Today, this story serves as a grim reminder that behind great discoveries, there can sometimes be terrifying consequences. Ice Age art. The mammoth from the Alp-Donau region, Germany, is one of the oldest examples of Ice Age art, dating back about 35,000 years. This miniature figurine is carved from mammoth ivory, which in itself is a testament to the skill and artistic sensitivity of prehistoric people. Discovered in the 1930s, the artifact became an important link in the study of early human art. The uniqueness of this piece lies not only in its age, but also in its level of detail. On the surface of the figurine, there are notches, possibly symbolic or decorative, which add significance to the artifact. They may be early examples of communication or expressions of ancient people's spiritual beliefs. Archaeologists suggest that such figurines may have been used for ritual purposes, serving as talismans for hunters or symbols of luck. The mammoth, symbolizing strength and endurance, probably played an important role in the worldview of primitive tribes. King Arthur, was he real or not? Camelot, the Knight of the Round Table, the wizard Merlin, the sword Excalibur. Have you guessed what this is about? We're going to talk about King Arthur, the legendary hero of medieval tales and romances, where he appears as a just ruler, a defender of honor, and the chivalric code. According to legend, King Arthur lived between the 5th and 6th centuries and was the leader of the Britons who inhabited Britain. The legends say that during the invasion of the Germanic tribes, the Anglo-Saxons, on the British Isles during the migration period, Arthur led the resistance that repelled the invaders. However, no modern historian can say with certainty whether this man actually existed. Scholars have repeatedly tried to attribute the legendary image of Arthur to various historical figures, but all attempts have been unconvincing. The earliest mentions of King Arthur date back to the 9th century. They tell of a leader, possibly not even a king, who took part in several battles with the Saxons. The accuracy of these accounts is questionable, and many researchers do not take them seriously. A little later in the 12th century, the figure of King Arthur appears in a cycle of medieval chivalric romances written in verse in northern France. But again, these romances are merely works of literature, not historical documents. In Britain, there are a number of monuments that are traditionally associated with the legend of King Arthur. For example, there is the now ruined Tintagel Castle, which is believed to be the birthplace of the future king. But during excavations at the castle ruins, scientists found no evidence confirming King Arthur as a real historical figure. Most likely, scientists will never know whether King Arthur was a real person or existed only in people's imagination. The Young Man Tree. In Ireland, after a hurricane that knocked down a 215-year-old beech tree, the skeleton of a young man who died in the Middle Ages was discovered in the roots. It's amazing that in 1800 the tree was accidentally planted right on the grave, and its roots grew through the remains, preserving important details that allowed scientists to study the young man's history. Analysis showed that he was 17 to 20 years old. Judging by his diet, the young man ate well and probably belonged to the wealthy part of society. However, the study also revealed a curvature of the spine, which may indicate hard physical labor during childhood. He died a violent death. 2 notches were found on the ribs, indicating stab wounds. This case highlights the importance of accidental archaeological discoveries, which shed light on the personal stories of people who lived centuries ago. Archaeologists excavated a 2,000-year-old estate. A group of Israeli archaeologists discovered 2 millennia-old ruins of a farm in the area of Karbat Asad, located east of the Sea of Galilee. Dozens of looms used for making clothes were found there, as well as large ceramic vessels for storing food and iron farming tools, including various pickaxes and scythes. The ancient coins that were found made it possible to date this estate to the second half of the 2nd century BC during the Hasmonean period. We were fortunate to discover a frozen time capsule, where everything remained just as the ancient inhabitants left it, apparently gathering their things and leaving in great haste in the face of some impending danger, possibly the threat of a military attack. From historical sources, we know that during this period, the Judean Hasmonean kingdom expanded into Galilee. It is possible that this homestead was abandoned as a result of those events. However, further research is needed to determine the identities of the people who lived here. The group also discovered building foundations, ceramic vessels, and other items dating back to earlier times to the 19th century BCE. This interesting and significant discovery was made during excavations carried out before the construction of a water pipeline stretching from the Mediterranean coast. Before continuing the work, it is planned to carefully preserve the estate as well as everything in its immediate vicinity. A piece of the dwelling. A piece of a Roman leather tent is a remarkable reminder of the daily life of the soldiers who guarded Hadrian's Wall in Roman Britain. Built in the early 2nd century AD, the wall stretched for 117 kilometers, dividing the Roman Empire from the barbarian lands to the north. Fort Vercovicium, part of this defensive system, was an important garrison where Roman soldiers lived and served. The tents were made from dozens of goat skins, carefully sewn together to withstand the harsh conditions of Britain's northern climate. Each contubernium, a group of 8 soldiers, used one such tent. It was their home, a place to rest, and a shelter from bad weather. The manufacturing process was so skillful that the seams and joints provided protection from rain and wind, which was critically important in the constant damp and cold conditions. However, the preserved part of the tent raises questions. How did such a fragile material manage to survive for 2,000 years? Archaeologists suggest that it was preserved by the special conditions of the fort's soil, as well as minimal exposure to oxygen. Mystics, on the other hand, claim that such tents could have been soaked in special solutions, the secret of which has been lost. It is possible that this is a legacy of knowledge that the ancient Romans could have received from other, more mysterious civilizations. Traces of Denisovans in a cave in northern Laos, in the Tam Ngu Hau II cave in the Annamite Mountains, a tooth was found that is 130,000 years old, which turned out to belong to a Denisovan, a subspecies of ancient humans, whose traces had previously been found in the Denisova cave in the Altai and in China. The discovered molar tooth belonged to a girl aged between 3.5 and 8 years old. The age of the find was determined by the sedimentary rocks in the cave and was estimated to be between 131,000 and 164,000 years old. The close morphological similarity to the Jiahe specimen from China indicates that they belong to the same taxon, and that Tam Ngu Hau II most likely represents a Denisovan. Denisovan anthropological material was found in Southeast Asia for the first time. The authors of the publication attribute the rarity of the find to the climatic features of the region. Teeth of large mammals were also found in the cave, including those of a stegodon, an ancient proboscidean animal related to the mammoth, elephant, and rhinoceros. Traces of Denisovans were first discovered in the Altai region, in Denisova Cave. In 2010, their genome was then decoded. Later in 2019, scientists found a jawbone on the Tibetan Plateau, proving that part of the species also lived in China. According to modern views, Africa is considered the cradle of humanity, but there is still no consensus on how this process took place. A number of scientists believe that there were 3 expansions of human ancestors from Africa into Eurasia. The early ancestor Homo, about 1.9 million years ago, the ancestors of Neanderthals and Denisovans, about 700,000 years ago, and modern humans about 50,000 years ago. According to archaeological data, the Denisovan is an independent subspecies of ancient humans. He appeared in the Altai after a powerful wave of migration from the Middle East about 300,000 years ago. His traces were found in Denisova Cave, which is where he got his name. The history of Egyptian princes. The first to discover Australia was the Dutchman William Janszoon in 1606. Early 20th century scientific data suggested a route from the northern island to Africa, where ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs were found. These findings indicate that the Egyptians were on the green continent 5,000 years before the Europeans. The hieroglyphs were found in the archaeological area of Karyong on the east coast of Australia, where they had long been known to the local Aboriginal people. These glyphs, known as the Gosford glyphs, contain texts that describe an expedition of the ancient Egyptians. These texts tell about the arrival on the Australian shores and the tragic fate of the prince who led the expedition, who died from a snake bite. After his death, according to ancient customs, the body was mummified and buried in a cave. Despite the seeming improbability of such a journey, there are arguments in favor of the possibility of long-distance expeditions by the Egyptians. Thor Heyerdahl, on the papyrus boat Ra II, successfully crossed the Atlantic, demonstrating that papyrus boats can withstand long voyages. Critics point out the inconsistency of the glyph style with classical Egyptian hieroglyphs, but this can be explained by the fact that they were created not by professional scribes, but by sailors. The authenticity of the Gosford glyphs is supported by some well-known Egyptologists. Where is Cleopatra's tomb located? Cleopatra, or Cleopatra VII Philopator, was the last queen of Hellenistic Egypt. First of all, she is known for her dramatic love story with the Roman general Mark Antony. When Egypt surrendered to Rome, the queen took her own life so as not to become a captive of the Roman Emperor Octavian Augustus. Antony also committed suicide, only a little earlier than Cleopatra. Ancient historians claim that the servants buried the lovers together immediately after their deaths, in the 30s BC in a tomb prepared for burial. The ancient Greek historian Plutarch wrote that the tomb of Cleopatra and Antony was located next to the temple of the Egyptian goddess Isis and was a majestic and beautiful monument whose interior captivated the imagination. There was a huge amount of gold, silver, emeralds, pearls, and many items made of ebony and ivory here. The location of the tomb of the Egyptian queen and the Roman general is still a mystery. In 2010, the former Secretary General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities of Egypt, Zaki Hawass, conducted excavations in the village of Taposiris Magna, where high-ranking officials were buried during the time of Cleopatra. While archaeologists made many discoveries then, they couldn't find Cleopatra and Antony's tomb. Researchers note that even if the queen's tomb has survived to this day, it may have been severely damaged by looters. In that case, it would be very difficult to recognize. Holy water from the air conditioner. A funny incident happened at the Sri Banke Bihari temple in Vrindavan, India, which could have happened anywhere, but it looks especially striking in a country with hundreds of gods and temples for every occasion. Worshippers gathered around the elephant statue where water dripped slowly. They deemed it holy water from Krishna's feet. However, in reality, the water was just simple condensation dripping from the air conditioner cooling the temple. For people who had never encountered air conditioners, this explanation was not sufficient. The devotees continued to insist that this was the very nectar from the lotus feet of Krishna, which the temple attendants collect every morning during the washing of the divine feet. The temple even had to issue an official statement to dispel the myth and warn people against drinking this water. The danger of such water is that fungi and bacteria can form in the air conditioning system, which can easily get into the droplets. This could lead to infections. But it should be noted that the stomachs of the locals are used to unfavorable conditions. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to buy food at street markets. When this incident was reported on television, the believers were even offended at the temple authorities for not warning them earlier. But how can you convince someone who already believes? That task is almost impossible. A temple for the lion-headed goddess. In Egypt, in the area of Athribis, an ancient temple carved into the rock was discovered. Its age is estimated at about 2,100 years, and it dates back to the reign of Ptolemy VIII, who ruled from 170 to 116 BC. This ruler, known for his complex political and family history, left behind many monuments, and the new temple has become an important discovery. Bas-reliefs have been preserved on the walls of the temple, depicting Ptolemy VIII making offerings to the lion-headed goddess Repit and her son Kalant. Repit was the wife of the god Minra, who was associated with fertility. Archaeologists believe that the temple was built for this goddess, although its name remains unknown. During the excavations, scientists discovered a hall where temple utensils and amphorae were stored. At the entrance to the room, unique bas-reliefs depicting Repit and Minra were found. Of particular interest is the depiction of Minra surrounded by the Decan stars, which the ancient Egyptians used for orientation at night. These stars have human bodies combined with the heads of animals such as the falcon and the ibis. Remains of the dancing dragon. Researchers from China have discovered the remains of a previously unknown feathered dinosaur, which has been named the dancing dragon. The creature lived on our planet about 120 million years ago. According to scientists, this interesting discovery will help shed light on the evolutionary gaps between dinosaurs and birds. The unique fossil of a flying dinosaur was discovered 10 years ago in China's Liaoning province, but it has only been made public now. During this time, Chinese scientists, together with their American colleagues, studied the remains and concluded that the skeleton belongs to a dinosaur previously unknown to science. The new species was named Wulong bohaiensis, which translates from Chinese as dancing dragon. The feathered dinosaur lived on the planet about 120 million years ago. Its fossils, including feathers and even soft tissues, are remarkably well preserved for their age. It was about the size of a common crow. The creature had a narrow, scaly head and a mouth full of sharp teeth. The dancing dragon fed on small mammals, lizards, birds, and fish. Its limbs, which were not like bird wings, were covered with feathers, and at the end of its slender tail there were 2 long feathers. Despite having wings, it did not fly, just like other similar feathered dinosaur species of that period. Scientists determined that the fossil belonged to a very young male. It was about a year old when it died. Chinese specialists hope that this interesting discovery will help to study in more detail the period when dinosaurs spread their wings and began to evolve into modern birds. The Lost Dutchman's Gold Mine. Perhaps the most popular story about lost treasures in North America is the story of the Lost Dutchman's Gold Mine. Superstition Mountain, located near Phoenix, Arizona, is believed to be the site of this lost treasure. In 1840, the Mexican family Peralta discovered a rich gold mine. Their last gold mining expedition in Mexico took place in 1848. According to legend, this expedition was attacked by the Apaches, and all family members were killed except for 2 people from the Peralta family who managed to escape to Mexico. The area where the expedition took place, where people were killed, is known as the Land of the Massacre. Few people knew the exact location of the gold mine, and the number of workers there was limited. Many maps have survived over the years only to be lost forever. People who claimed to have found the location of the Peralta mine could not return from there, or some misfortune befell them before they reached the legendary mine. The legend of the Lost Dutchman's Gold Mine says that a German immigrant named Jacob Walzer discovered the famous Peralta mine. Walzer and his partner Jacob Weiser worked hard at the mine and managed to hide some of the gold somewhere in the mountains. Weiser was killed, most likely by the Apaches or by Walzer himself. Walzer moved to Phoenix due to his declining health and died in 1891. He described the location of the mine to a neighbor who took care of him, but the Lost Dutchman's gold vein was never found. Same-sex love in Pompeii. 2,000 years ago, when the eruption of Vesuvius destroyed the ancient Roman city of Pompeii, 2 victims of the disaster clung to each other in their final moments. They became known as the 2 maidens, believed to be mother and daughter or sisters. However, new DNA research has changed the perception of their story. Scientists from the Max Planck Institute conducted an analysis of the remains preserved in plaster casts. The results showed that both of the deceased were men, and their posture could indicate a very close relationship between them. Now, experts suggest that the pair could have been same-sex lovers. CT scan data and DNA analyses confirmed that the deceased were not related. The man identified as individual 22 was over 20 years old, while his companion individual 21 was between 14 and 19 years old. I believe it's not entirely correct to conclude that there was a same-sex relationship between the 2 men just based on their death in the volcanic eruption. But modern scientists can also be quite surprising with their reasoning. My goal was simply to talk about this so-called discovery. It's up to each person to decide whether to believe the scientists. A necropolis with 95 skeletons. Before you is one of the most mysterious and unique places in the Caucasus, the Dargov's necropolis, located in North Ossetia. This is a medieval architectural complex, also known as the City of the Dead. It consists of 95 stone crypts, many of which are shaped like towers. The necropolis is located on the slope of a picturesque valley among majestic mountains, which gives it a special atmosphere of mystery and tranquility. Dargovs holds special significance for the local culture and history. It is believed that the crypts were built between the 16th and 18th centuries and were used as burial sites. Each family built its own crypt, where not only the bodies but also the belongings of the deceased were buried, making it a burial place. Dargovs became a kind of family archive, where household items and even bones were kept, which helped historians better understand the life and customs of ancient Ossetians. The necropolis is protected by UNESCO as a cultural heritage site, and it attracts tourists from all over the world. Among the local residents, there are even stories that anyone who visits the City of the Dead may not return. Today, the necropolis is an important cultural landmark and serves as a reminder of the eternal connection between generations. Stone Forest.
Bulgaria.
There is a truly unique place in Bulgaria. Not far from Varna, there is a stone forest that consists of structures, but their origin has not yet been determined. This is one of the most popular places in this small country, attracting the attention not only of tourists, but also of scientists. The site resembles several stone sculptures filled with sand. If you look closely, you can see the outlines of human faces and animal silhouettes. as well as some symbols, like a heart. No one knows when this forest appeared. Scientists have not been able to find an answer to this question yet. This forest is first mentioned in a source from the early 19th century. No earlier references have been found so far. There is a special place in the stone forest that looks like a circle. Many scientists believe that different religious rituals were performed here, but it has not yet been possible to confirm or refute this information. Although you can see familiar shapes in the stones, scientists still say that the stone boulders are not man-made. People tend to look for different symbols, which is why they see silhouettes. There are many theories about how the stone forest appeared. Some people suggest that this is the work of aliens. Some tend to believe that it was built specifically for rituals. And some scientists assume that there used to be a sea in this place, which is why such stone boulders were formed. Travelers who have visited this stone forest claim that equipment stops working there, and people regain their energy and feel spiritually renewed. Many people come here to perform certain rituals. According to local belief, to find love, you need to touch the heart-shaped stone, and if a couple wants children, they should touch the stork-shaped statue. There is also a stone with a hole, which, according to legend, can cleanse you of sins. To do this, you need to pass through it. A ring with a hologram. This is an unusual Roman ring found in the tomb of the noblewoman Ibutia Kvarta, dating back to the 1st century AD. Its unique feature is the hologram effect created by a masterfully engraved portrait, presumably of her son, Titus Carvilius Gemellus. According to historical records, Titus died at the age of 18, and the ring likely served as a tribute and a symbol of the mother's grief. The ring is made of gold, and the stone set in the frame is perfectly polished and contains a miniature image. This portrait is unusual for that time. The facial details look so realistic that they create the impression of a three-dimensional image, as if someone is looking out from within the stone. Such a technique was incredibly complex, indicating the highest level of skill among ancient Roman jewelers. But the ring also raises mystical questions. Some believe that its owner might have used it as an amulet, connecting her with the spirit of her son, possibly to seek advice or protection. The mystery of the artifact is heightened by the fact that very few engravings with such an effect have been found, and it is still unclear how such a striking optical illusion was achieved. Giants in Lovelock Cave? The Paiute tribe, Native Americans from Nevada, have passed down stories from generation to generation about white-skinned, red-haired giants known as the Siteka. These legends were first recorded in 1882 by Sarah Winnemucca Hopkins, the daughter of a Paiute chief, in her book, Life Among the Paiutes, Their Wrongs and Claims. According to the legends, these giants were fierce cannibals. A particularly significant story is about a battle that took place at the site now known as Lovelock Cave. According to legend, in the early 20th century, archaeologists discovered thousands of artifacts in this cave, which gave rise to hypotheses about the reality of these legends. The Siteka, or Tule eaters, used rafts made from this aquatic plant to cross Lake Lahontan during the last ice age. It is claimed that the Paiutes eventually united against the Siteka. Chasing them, they drove them into the cave. Refusing to come out and fight, the giants were destroyed with the help of burning arrows that the tribes shot into the cave, causing a fire. Many of the giants died and the rest suffocated from the smoke. Lovelock Cave, also known as the Bat Cave, is considered an ancient site that was formed even before humans appeared on the continent. In 1886, local Native Americans told the legend to engineer John Reed, who was unable to start the excavation. Later, in 1911, miners extracting guano discovered artifacts which led to the first archaeological research. In 1924, the second excavation uncovered about 10,000 items, including duck decoys, and unusually large sandals, which confirmed the stories about giants. Radiocarbon analysis indicated that the cave was inhabited around 1,500 BC. The debate about the existence of giants continues, but many scientists believe that these were simply people who were taller than average. The discoveries made in the cave, including stones with calendar markings and much more, can now be seen in Nevada museums and at the Smithsonian Museum. Heracleion, once one of the greatest ports of ancient Egypt, disappeared underwater after a devastating earthquake in the 1st century BC. Its existence was long considered a myth until the French archaeologist Frank Gaudio discovered the lost city in the early 2000s in Abu Qir, not far from the modern coast of Egypt. The most remarkable find was a massive black granite slab on which the name of the city and details of its connection to the ancient Egyptian gods were inscribed. Along with the slab, archaeologists found dozens of sunken ships, remarkably well-preserved statues, temples, and numerous artifacts, including jewelry, coins, and personal belongings of the inhabitants. Excavations are ongoing, and each discovered object sheds light on the role of Heracleion as a major center of trade and religious life. The city, submerged in the depths of the sea, serves as a reminder of how natural disasters can forever change the course of history. Bronze sword with rock crystal. This stunning bronze sword, inlaid with turquoise and finished with gold, belongs to the Warring States period in China, spanning the 4th to 2nd centuries BC. It was a time when numerous kingdoms fought for dominance and influence, and the art of war reached a high level of sophistication. This sword stood out not only for its combat purpose, but also for its stunning use of crystal. The hilt of the sword is made of rock crystal, which gives it a special elegance and makes it not just a weapon, but also a work of art. The turquoise inlay adds unique color accents, and the use of gold emphasizes the status of the owner, who was likely a member of the nobility or a high-ranking warrior. Such swords not only served as symbols of power and influence, but also demonstrated the skill of ancient Chinese blacksmiths and jewelers. A unique discovery in Egypt. During excavations of the ancient city of Aswan, archaeologists found pieces of a sarcophagus lid that were decorated with a colorful leopard face. Only now have scientists published a digital reconstruction of the fragment of artwork that was found in the necropolis, which contains 300 tombs dating back to the 7th century BC. In ancient Egyptian society, leopards symbolized determination and strength, so the image of the animal in the tomb was likely meant to strengthen the spirit of the recently deceased and help in the journey to the land of the dead. The necropolis, where the leopard sarcophagus was located, was used for about 1,000 years. Until the 4th century AD, the excavations were carried out by an international team of experts from the Egyptian-Italian mission in western Aswan. In other tombs, there were a total of 35 mummies and a number of burial items, such as pots with bitumen for mummification, burial mass, bed linen, papyrus, and food for the journey to the afterlife. Next to the tomb, there was another interesting find, a bowl with plant material, which turned out to be pine nuts. Although the nuts were not native to the region, it is known that they were used by cooks in Alexandria, according to a Roman cookbook called Apicius, which was compiled as early as the 1st century AD. One of the recipes described soft-boiled eggs in a sauce made from pine nuts, ground pepper, honey, and anchovy paste. We imagine that the people buried in the Aswan tomb liked this rare seed so much that their relatives placed a bowl next to the deceased so they could enjoy them for all eternity. Tell us in the comments about your favorite dish that you can't live without. Share this video with your friends and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, everyone.